All right, well, we are going to be joined by Executus and ex-soldier. Welcome, gentlemen. Executus, I got to say, it's great to have you on here, and I just want to say you guys are
I know
finally
you wanted Jay
getting...
Smooth.
I'm sorry?
I know you just said you wanted Jay Smooth. Sorry, not today.
No. It's fine having you on. Honestly, you guys have finally kind of found your footing, and that's what I wanted to ask you, is seeing that we're now seeing a better rival, what exactly changed in order to get you guys finally winning again consistently?
Well, we were kind of forced into the roster switch around. We moved Coffee Thief up into a 10 from playing the 8, and he's just been killing that so far. So, and other than that, it's just kind of the improved play there and just kind of helping out everywhere else.
So would you say that having this roster issue that you guys have kind of had dropped upon you, would you say that's benefited your team as a whole?
Unfortunately, I mean, you obviously never wanted to have that, but I can't argue with the results since it's happened. So since it's happened, play has improved. Can't really argue with that.
Yeah, you guys definitely look much more cohesive, and you personally have been putting up really good numbers for your team, and that definitely doesn't hurt.
Yep. So, ex-soldier, you guys beat M60s in overtime on Tuesday. Pretty impressive result. Overall, was there any one main lesson that you guys feel that you learned from that match?
It wasn't a 5-1 that I hoped, but the lesson is that we see more of our mistakes that are coming out and just learning what the situation is that's going around us and how to react to it, like sort of a putt match, and just not rely on me to make those calls all the time and just realize what you're doing by yourself.
Okay. So, ex-soldier, any final words for Executus?
Good luck and have fun.
Executus, any final words for CD and ex-soldier?
No, just good luck, and we will see you in the area of increased risk.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, honestly, it's. I'm very happy to see that Rival is doing better, and for better or worse with our roster, it's been working. Again, Executus has been putting up the most damage for their team, been putting up good numbers. He's very consistent, but we've seen them falter. Now, is that the case tonight? For me, as far as I was just about to ask you predictions, it's all dependent for me on which team of Rival shows up. If it's the team we've been seeing, I'm going to actually give this to Rival at least 5-3. If it's the team that we've seen kind of struggle and not be as cohesive as the last two match days for them, I'm going to give this to CD in the same, about 5-2, 5-3.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think CD have a lot of very good things going for him.
Yeah.
Overall, I feel that CD's play as of recent, despite Rival having a couple back-to-back wins, I feel CD's movement in this direction, and there's just overall improvement over the last week or 2 weeks since ex-soldiers joined.
I agree.
I think that they still have the edge over Rival right now. You can't ignore just the raw experience on Rival, though. They just have so many talented players that have been around for so long. They've seen all the situations, so they don't have to go through that whole process that CD have to go through of kind of paying attention to themselves and understanding what situation they're in. The guys on Rival should know that overall. So it comes down to Rival, how they can implement their strategies and how well they can work together and execute them. So I personally, right now, I think CD are in better form, and I think they will take it 5-3.
Okay. I'm gonna sit in Rival's favor this time. I hope this is the change that we wanted to see from them, and I really hope this momentum carries forward. So I'm gonna go in favor of Rival for this one.
Yep. So it looks like we'll still be another minute away. The new patch came out this morning, so a few players having some issues, they're getting sorted out.
That's something else to note. Because of the new patch, unfortunately, no awesome camos.
Yep, and also some of the post-game battle results. We'll be showing the in-game training room stats this time. So we can also go in there and show some other cool little things while we're doing that, but we won't have the nice flashy ones that we normally have, unfortunately. But I digress.
I do like those a lot, those camos.
Yeah, the camos especially, though, except for Highs. Every time Highs camo, they're the only camo that looks like they could actually do something, but even then, they don't look like.
Well, your favorite camo is
camo.
actually, I believe, Apex's camo.
I do like. I've always been a fan of like black and red or black and orange, like the hard contrasting colors, and something about their camo, just the design on it. I like it overall.
Personally, I like the banana yellow of Eclipse. I'm a fan of that, and Aquatic M60s. I mean, I like it. I don't know why.
Yeah, Siebel's the tweets. The purple and blue is
I actually
also...
do like the purple of Rival, though. To be honest, I think it's a little cleaner.
I'm kind of sad because this first match would be some It almost would be hard to tell the tanks
I like how
apart.
we're just going on a camo rant right now.
Yeah, well, we have a minute till things get started, and getting in here will actually take a second and go over maps.
So
what is
the overtime map of the day?
Overtime map of the day is Murvanka.
Okay.
Which we are only going to see in regulation once tonight, and that will be in the second match of 07 Deja Vu, if that makes it to a fourth battle.
Right. Well, let's talk about this matchup. What are the maps?
So first off, we're going to have Himmelsdorf and Steps.
Interesting.
Himmelsdorf.
We've seen Rival win on Himmels.
Yeah. Well, actually, I believe I actually have that down.
You probably do.
Let's see here. So Rival attacking victories on Himmelsdorf is 3, but their losses are 3.
Okay, so
attacking
again, it depends. It depends on which team of Rival shows up.
Now the other thing to keep an eye on though is Rival have 5 defensive victories on this map and only 1 loss.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's just get right into it. The first map between Rival and Team CD.
Himmelsdorf, a small city map. The teams start the battle in opposite corners. Both bases are located close to each other, but in a way that you can't stay on the defensive all the time. The main attack routes pass through the hill, the alley and the railroad, but in general, the attack can be successfully executed through any part of the map. Heavy tanks and tank destroyers with powerful guns run the show here. However, a lot depends on the mobile light tanks.
And first off, we have Rival with 2 215Bs, 250Bs, a 183, a Batchat, and an RU-251. Meanwhile, Siebel the Tweet coming in with 3 215Bs, an IS-7, a 50B, a Grill 15, and a 1390. Something to keep an eye on is Pompous Magnus is playing that Grill 15 again. He's been putting up some pretty insane numbers so far this season, just in any tank, let alone the Grill, but he's been playing that more often than not, and constantly just be able to put up insane numbers.
Yeah, I mean, and this is honestly, as far as lineups go, pretty standard from both teams. There's nothing that's surprising me at all. Like, Grill, you could argue we don't really see much on this map, but I mean, you could swap that for any tank destroyer like an E3 or something of that nature, which we do see on this map. So,
yeah, absolutely. And the defense here, sitting in a pretty standard defense. They do have the RU-251 sitting in the cubby at A5, which is kind of interesting to keep an eye on. It's a rather odd spot for an RU-251, just keeping vision down the 0 line. And in the attacking side of Siebel the Tweet, sitting pretty passive, just trying to feel out the other team. They push their IS-7 up to the hold down at F8. Great little spot there, because if you get in there in an IS-7, there's almost no way to shoot the lower plate or even the upper plate, so you just have the shot on the front of the IS-7 of the turret,
which you might as well just not even shoot.
Exactly. And the thing about that spot is it has clean line of sight all the way up the 8 line, so if anything's rotating up or down the hill, you typically can know about it.
Right. And there is that 215 being 183. I've noticed that Executus, he also does tend to play the tank destroyers for the most part for this team. Not all the time, but he is the player for Rival that fills that role, and it shows that he's done well. Again, he is the top damage dealing member of this team, of this roster.
Yep, but it's also kind of hard not to when you're sitting there in a 183, because if you pen one headshot, it's 1,800 damage in a shot.
But again, that's what I was alluding to, is that's not the only reason that he is playing that role. I mean, we see him a lot of just tier 10 heavies, and he's very consistent. We've seen him in bad chats be very consistent. Overall, strong player. It's just on this specific map, he's always usually the one playing that role.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a fun tank to play, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, especially
the
when
183,
especially when you get like back-to-back penetrations.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you can do like 2 shots
yeah.
of like 3,000 damage total, and you're just all right.
Just hit him with a feels good, man.
Exactly, and the IS-7 here just sitting on this hold down. I love this spot just because you have a clean line of sight all the way down the 8 line. If they want to push off the hill or come down,
it's hard. It's really hard to get that tank out of there.
Oh yeah, no, it's. I don't want to say it's impossible. There are a few angles if you have a higher tank. I know E100's playing the opposite corner because the E100 sits up so high. Can shoot down into the lower or into the upper plate, but that requires heat shells and just working the angle perfectly. And if there's any tank destroyers behind you, he's going to get punished every time he pokes out. So typically, it's a pretty survivable situation as long as you have like 1 or 2 teammates behind you. And finally,
here
CD
comes
making
the
the push
push.
up the 8 line, but they're still just kind of taking their time. They're just going to use that I-7 once again to play the hold down. Meanwhile, Flak and that 215B did take a big old chunk of damage out of that 215B. Most likely from Pompous Magnus in the distance there. Didn't see exactly where he got penetrated, but I'd imagine on the hatch on top.
All right, so at about 6 minutes left on the clock, it is going to be CD making a push for that 2 cap.
And you can actually see the penetrating mark from that grill hit him right in the turret ring, essentially, right below where the turret
Boom,
meets the
Thank
tank.
you. Beautiful camera.
For those trying to get out a 215B that's either hold down like this or side scraping, that spot on either side of the tank, that just right below the turret, is pretty easy to pen, even with regular AP shells, let alone premium rounds. So something to keep an eye on here. Now the cap is
another
already...
thing to keep an eye on here, James, is the fact that there's 10 seconds left on this cap.
Yeah, and Rename put one shot into Coffee Thief, but Coffee Thief is going to
they're just going to pour over onto Flak.
Now we'll have to see if they recognize the isolation. They do get the kill onto Pompous Magnus.
Flak has gone down, though, for the trade. Renam now finds himself in between a bad situation. Coffee Thief, though, getting very low. Now they have charged the tank of Executus in a 183, but he says, no thank you, as he deletes X-Soldier. But Team CD is still not in a great spot, as now E63 has cleaned up Rename, and it's going to be Muriel and Fixer Reloaded cleaning up Executus, although he did get that crazy good shot off. And now Fixer Reloaded going to be cleaning up Unknown One with the help of Muriel. The problem is Muriel is very low on HP, and he's got to be careful in peeking over this corner. Fixer is taking a lot of damage for that.
They need to hurry up and get out Unknown One so they can turn and focus on other tanks. They're just taking way too long to get through those pull-down tanks.
Nope, and the problem is Commander J is about to be fully reloaded with that clip. Meanwhile, Unknown One is going to find Fixer Reloaded. Smiley Rage going to go down. Muriel is at one shot. In fact, he's gone, and now it's just up to Gabe, which means that this one is going in favor of Rival.
Yeah, and once again, Rival only having one defensive loss on this map the whole season. So this is one of the maps where they actually feel pretty comfortable on defense. So,
and let's just take a look. I mean, they played well.
Yeah, and you got to remember, is Rival's defensive win rate overall is not that great right now, and the fact that this is one of the maps where they're 5-1 on defense.
Sure.
It's really not bad. And the Ram comes out of Pub Whisper, onto Gabe.
All right, so Rival 1-0.
Yeah, not too surprising. That pushing into the set defense on Himmelsdorf has always been a rather challenging task.
Sure.
They gave away the I-7 essentially for free. However, he did keep 2 tier 10s out of the fight. The problem was they're pushing into a fixed position, which you're going to lose a lot of HP when you make that initial push. Now, they did get the shot onto Flak from that grill. He penetrated in that turret ring we were talking about. But that's just not enough to really justify pushing right then and there. You get 700 damage. You got to remember that a 215B, a 183, and whatever else is over there, I believe the RU-251 was over there as well. They're all going to get free shots, and when they're sitting there in fixed positions, hold down the windows, you're not going to be able to do much damage to them back. You might get a lucky snapshot or off, but most likely not.
The only thing, the issue that I saw personally was they had 9 seconds on cap, and they decided, and those 2 tanks, by the way, that were on cap for Team CD, they were not really being pushed. Flak was the only one really to receive any sort of resets on them. Yeah. And then they just decided to come around the corner and overmatch him, and I understand that.
They had to because Coffee Thief came in behind with that 50B, and the IS-7 of Rename put a shot into him, but the IS-7 isn't enough to really pump out any damage back. So he got one shot off, but he can't force that 50B back. So the 50B is just going to be able to sit there and shoot that corner where 2 of the 3 tanks on cap were. The only other tank was the 1390 up on the north end of cap.
Right.
And so when that happened, they had to push around because they didn't want to get reset. But the problem was that they had to push into the guns that were hold down. They were hoping that they'd be distracted.
Right.
They didn't. Caught. And at that point, they just tried to salvage the best of the situation. All right, we know we have an overmatch up here. We know this IS-7 has the 50B and the bat shot on them. So let's push into the north and try to gain that overmatch up there. However, it just took too long. They didn't get... You have to push all the way into that cubby to get those tanks out, essentially. You can't try to sit there and trade from a distance. They did, but it just took so long. They bled so much HP. Pompous Magnus got deleted before the push even started.
Executus.
And then Executus...
Big shots.
And he put up, it was 3,800 damage last game. So... it's really hard to attack, especially just that bluntly through the north cap.
Right.
If you're going to attack it, you need to either come from multiple angles, or you need to do a lot better job at softening up that defense and having a big enough HP lead
to just push in.
When you push in, you can take the damage, and you're still going to be on top on HP and guns, which is not what CD did, unfortunately. And that being said, it's going to be 1-0. CD are going to be on the defense now, and looking at the lineups, 250Bs, an IS-7, two 215Bs, a Batchat, and a 1390. Meanwhile, Siebel the Tweet, 3 215Bs, a 113, a 50B, a T123, and a 1390. Rival bringing a good bit of flex power. Those 50Bs and the Batchat do allow them to get around the map a good bit, as well as a 1390. But Siebel the Tweet, on defense, 3 215Bs and the 113. Looking at their defense, they're using that 113 to clear the 3 line, and they're using the 50Bs to cover. So they're just going to set up almost identical to Rival, with the exception that they already have the E3 over in the hold down at a 5. And he's actually not in the hold down. He's sitting just south of it, looking for a clean shot on the 0 line. He'll get a little bit better vision there. And he can hopefully get a shot off on the enemy tank that pushes down for Rival.
And honestly, the offensive setup here is almost identical to Team CD's from last round.
Yeah, it's very similar. The 113 is a little bit exposed. If, say, a couple of the 50Bs or the Batchat push out there, he might be able to get isolated without the other guns really able to support him. There's a lot of very narrow angles down there between all the train cars and other things, so may not be the easiest thing to support that 113, so he needs to be careful he doesn't get permatracked by the Batchat in an odd angle where he just can't do anything and just throw away his tank for free. But it doesn't look like it's going to be a problem because he's going to start backing off.
So in your opinion, what's the safest way to approach this specific map, like in a pub?
So that's kind of tricky just because the format's a little bit different. It's still north versus south, and we'll get back to that in just a moment because they are actually pushing up the 8 line right now.
Gabe actually took a shot.
Yeah, and we're going to see a no one go to the same spot that Rename was in that IS-7. He'll most likely just play a hold down there. They have that 1390 up towards the north, and he's actually going to drop down south and come around to the bottom. And look at those responses. CD have already read this, and they've said, all right, they're most likely just coming for this north cap. We're ready for it, and they've pulled all their tanks up to A4. The only reason that they would do this at this point is if they're ready to push here and now before they even get cap pressure going. So maybe a push coming out for CD already? And now they're going to split back up. So
they are going to split up.
It doesn't really make sense to have all your guns sitting at B4. So the only thing I could think of at that point was they were just going to push through right then and there and try to catch Rival off guard, maybe trying to adjust their setup. And Merle is actually backing up, trying to get on top of the RoboPower back there. And what he's hoping to do is get the angle to where he can splash reset the corner there at A6. Now, the thing is, if he doesn't get the resets, he needs to be absolutely positive he was firing in the right spot to get the reset, because if there was a tank there and he wasn't landing it, they may assume that it's just clear because those HE sets didn't land. I've never been a big fan of just hoping that the HE reset definitely cleared it and assuming that you're fine, because that can come back to bite you. And the interesting thing here is they only have the 2 15Bs and the 150B in the north in position to punish. And they're all stacked up, ready to push.
Oh, look at this. And Pub Whisperer is going to back out knowing that his life would have been over had he stayed. And X-Soldier is pushing from behind. He's going to find shots on the Pub Whisperer. Unknown one, and that IS-7 is trying to trade shot for shot to keep that little 1390 alive, as well as put some pressure on a Team CD.
Smiley Rage is actually going to push up, and he is going to find Executus for pretty much free. It's looking pretty good for Siebel to tweet right now.
Tons of damage on Executus. Commander J is under fire, taking a lot of damage, sitting at only about 587 hit points. Flak has also been found. And Pop is going to take out Pub Whisperer in the 1390. This is looking good for Team CD.
A little bit of a mistake there by Smiley Rage. He was on his way to the hill.
Look at the HP values now for the XP pool, for Team CD. A lot of those tanks are one-shot. Rename, Fixer Reloaded, Smiley Rage, Gabe.
I'm not a big fan of the decision-making there out of Smiley Rage. He pushed towards the hill, but then saw a bunch of tanks and decided to turn and just empty his clip into a bunch of full-health tanks. And they knew that Executus was a one-shotter up on the hill, and he left the gun alive.
Yeah, Papa's going to take out someone as well as Rename. Coffee Thief going to trade. Meanwhile, Flack is going to trade out Smiley Rage.
Yeah, and so Smiley Rage threw away almost all his HP because he didn't push up and take out the one-shot or tank.
Executus finding Mariel, but X-Soldier taking out Flack. Wait a second. Coffee Thief finding Rename. This is not impossible. If Executus can at least get a shot into X-Soldier.
I hate to put it this bluntly, but if Executus comes up big here and cleans out this round, I'm going to fault this round clearly on Smiley Rage.
Right, Coffee Thief finds another in Gabe. This on it. Oh, it's really hard to call.
Oh, Coffee Thief, pull forward.
Oh, Executus from behind. They're going to light each other. Who's going to get the shot off?
Oh, but
X-Soldier is not looking in the direction of Coffee Thief at all. And Pompous from downtown is going to take out.
He only hits him for 410. He's still alive. 27 HP.
Oh, no.
That could have gone very badly, very quickly. 402 HP, all that was left on the field for CD.
That was so close at the end there. And like you said, Coffee Thief just needed to pull forward, and then he had pressure from Executus in the 50B flanking. That could have been a good situation for Team Rival.
There was two players there that I'm going to be very critical of right now. Smiley Rage and Executus both made individual mistakes there that I'm not a big fan of. First, Smiley Rage's push that I was talking through. He pushed in, and you could tell he was going after the hill. I assumed he was going to push up and take out the one-shot or tank. It's a 50B, so it's even more important than just any regular gun being around because it has those 4 shots to just pump out. So even though it only has 20, even if he has 22 HP, he can still pump out 1,600 damage, in the time that it's going to take someone to get one shot off.
Right.
So it's kind of a big deal to make sure you take that thing out. Instead, he just saw a whole bunch of full health tanks, even though the rest of his team really wasn't engaged in a brawl. And so he stopped and just emptied his clip instead of making sure that gun went down. And then Executus came up big there, was dropping out shot after shot throughout this game, did 3,400 damage. And look at the damages for the team of Rival. 3,600, 3,400, 3,400. A lot of tanks that were able to be really, really effective that round. Coffee Thief has been huge all this season. But then, Unknown One and Pub Whisper, not really able to do a whole lot. Unknown One did get caught out. But my second criticism there is of Executus is once he was up on the hill, they knew where Pompous was in that 215B back, and he still committed down the B line after X-Soldier. But then he stopped once he realized that he got spotted, and he left himself in a situation where he couldn't leave because Pompous could shoot him, and he couldn't push forward. So if he had stayed back on the B line and just loomed back there to where if anything got spotted on, he could pull forward and shoot while Coffee Thief was doing his thing, they could have won that round because Coffee Thief, after he pulled forward, was relatively safe at that point. So I didn't feel there was a need for him to come down at least that route. If he wanted to get off the hill, go all the way across while he's not spotted, get around and open up the A line. And so that he ended up going down there, and that, what should have first it should have been a CD victory easily. Then after Smiley Rage made that mistake, it tilted way back in the favor of Rival. Yeah. And then that decision right there put it back in the favor of CD. So, can't really take care of everything.
Mistakes were made, but that is going to lead us into the second map between Rival and CD.
Steps, the most open map in the league. The attacking team appears near the rocks at the bottom of the map, and the defending team starts at the top. Bases are located near the railway and on the green. The best way to control them is to use the lowland near the second base. The attacking team usually begins the attack from the rocks and the railway, but sometimes they can attack through the green. Teams often drag vehicles from flank to flank, so both teams usually pick light vehicles with a good camouflage rating, but sometimes use tanks with a strong turret and even SPGs.
And looking at the lineups, Rival bringing 2 140s, 3 bat chats, a TVP, and a Lorraine 155. Meanwhile, CD coming in here with a 113, 3 140s, 2 bat chats, and an RU 251. Right off the gate.
We are going to see Artie being favored here by Rival, and it is going to be the Lorraine 155. Earlier in this round robin and even the first, we saw mostly M40 43s. We saw like one M 53 55, and now it's pretty much been all Lorraine's. The last.
On this map and Muravanka.
Well, not even just this map, but also on Mines.
Well, Mines, we've still been seeing a lot of M40s. If you remember Chase Potato and that insane one-shot,
Sure.
that was an M40, 43. But anyways, as far as the choice there with the Lorraine, just being that more flexible already, having that speed, it definitely is a nice choice. And looking at this could turn into a...
very early brawl.
Exactly.
But it stays somewhat civil, James.
Well, we'll have to see what happens
For
here.
now.
The Lorraine trying to get a shot in there comes up just a little bit short. Trying to shoot over berms can be a little bit tricky just because the angles have to be perfect. Arcs of the artillery come in there. The Lorraine does not have the highest arc of the artillery, so does struggle to shoot over things. And the RU-251 of Gabe has actually gotten in all the way behind. And at this point, he should just fire at the artillery and just take him down, even if he goes down.
Should. One more shot, and he's going to take it out. I like that play.
Trade for trade on the tier 8. The artillery is no longer a factor, and they know the batch shot's out, so I would not be surprised to see a push, and actually they're going to choose to go ahead and just back off right now.
And that was by no means a throwaway. That was a beautiful play actually coming out of Gabe. The threat of Artie is no longer there. They don't have to worry about it, and they can set up potentially completely differently the way they want to now.
As a defending team, if you can take out the artillery, and then that's just such a nice, favorable trade. The artillery's gone, they can sit back, and they don't have to be worried about being just worked down over time, which is the situation where they already work best, is when they have a lot of time to just sit there and fire and fire and fire.
Honestly, that was just really great stuff from Gabe. I truly adore that play.
Now, something I do want to clarify here real quick. Don't do that in pub matches, please. Do not be that person. In competitive play, when you know that your team has a game plan and that you're ready to just set up as a big group and work together, absolutely take the artillery out if you're calculated and you make that play. Doing that in a pub match, though, takes a gun off your team that could be used elsewhere. There's not the same level of coordination that these guys have.
You're probably not going to make it all the way to the back to get the RT.
Yeah, exactly, especially that early. There's too many tanks on the field, so don't assume because these guys do it, you can do everything they do. There are a lot of things that are good things to pick up, such as this position right now from Smiley Ridge. This is a great spot if you're in the north. You can really hold down on this line right here, and you can be really hard to dig out. But just rushing after artillery, don't be that guy. And right now, CD just choosing to back off, and they're up on HP by about 600, so pretty comfortable right now, and they've backed off. They've gotten even the 113 out of there, and it's up to Rival right now to figure out what they want to do to try to open up this defense of CD, and right now they're going to choose to start moving tanks around the south.
Well, I can tell you for certain it's going to be a hell of a lot tougher without that RT.
Yeah, well, with this sort of lineup, that lineup is reliant upon doing a lot of damage before they make that push. It has the speed to get there quickly, so they don't take as much damage making the push. That's something that we were just talking about on Himmelsdorf. On Himmelsdorf, when you have to, especially when you're pushing through that 2-cap, you take a lot of damage pushing into a fixed position. With these sort of lineups on this map, there are a lot of approaches where you can kind of really appear on top of the other team without them really able to trade too much. But the problem is that they don't have anything to really leverage outside of that. They're going to be equal on HP, which is still going to go in favor of the defense. So it's going to be really hard for them to kind of work them down, especially with that artillery down. They have no heavy tanks to take the blunt of a push or to really be a pivot point. So it's going to be hard for Rival.
I definitely believe. Now, granted, I agree with what you said. It is going to be hard for Rival, but I think they can do it.
Well, another little fun fact for you is Rival's attacking win rate on steps. They only have 3 round wins out of 5. So, while it's still positive, that's only a 60% overall, which you could argue is not that great. And their defensive win rate is actually worse, which is rather surprising for a map like Steps.
Now, we do see the bat shot of Commander J set up to put up a little bit of cap pressure. And this is obviously not to cap, James. This is just to get a response out of Team CD.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, hey, if it winds down at caps, that's great, but I can tell you it's not going to happen.
Oh, and CD could be rotating into a trap right now.
Uh-oh.
They're both rotating through the south. CD want to take control of the south so they can really work that field.
Oh, SpaghettiOs. It's going to be Coffee Thief being spotted by X-Soldier. They're going to go and light each other up.
And Smiley Rage, who had just gotten down off that ledge, is going to go ahead and drive back up.
Oh, man. Only if he had been in position.
He'll still be in a good position now, but that's one of those moments where it's you just
Right, but that
move
could have
out.
been damage that he could have been pumping out without taking the time to move back up.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is going to sit here in position, ready to start shooting. Meanwhile,
Commander J snuck forward. He's now off the cap, and they are slowly pinching the team of CD as damage is coming onto X-Soldier. He is about 2 shots away from being out of this fight.
you take the X-Soldiers back, and they will get their guns together. They're in a nice, tight little group. And then the real
Oh
key...
my goodness, the damage on Flak.
And Commander J is coming up big here because he's opened up that extra angle on the Smiley Rage. He's taking all sorts of damage. This battle could be decided by Smiley Rage and how long he can stay alive in this position.
And he's doing a good job of moving back and forth behind cover, but Unknown One is going to push forward and try to take out Fixer Reloaded in the 113. He's lost a lot of HP. Flak right below, and 2 tanks go down for Team CD. Right at the exact same time. Smiley Rage trading out Flak. Smiley Rage is coming up huge right now for Team CD.
Commander J is going to be reloaded, and he is trying to take Pompous on one-on-one.
E63 finding rename. Pompous going to go down, but Smiley is right there to find the shot and get the trade immediately. As we now find ourselves in a 2v3 situation, but it's almost a 2v1 at this point. With Coffee Thief and Unknown One, each within double-digit HP. And E63 has about had enough of Smiley Rage. It is now up to Muriel. Now, he could do this. He's in a bat shot.
Yeah, absolutely. He can still do this. He has 3 shots left, which is more than he needs to kill the 2 one-shotter tanks.
Each.
He can even eat a shell in the process.
But that's the problem. He can only eat 1 shell. And now Coffee Thief and Unknown One are both moving together and pushing towards the last known location of Muriel Scarada.
Yeah, well, the decision here is they've decided not to cap. So they do light him.
They are going to find a miss coming out of Coffee Thief. Fortunately for him, he's not in an autoloader, so he is going to get his shell back relatively soon.
If he gets delit, he could turn around here and take them head on.
Yeah, and the reason I said that is we saw it the other week where someone was in an autoloader and they didn't drop their clip in time, and they only took that 1 shot, and then they lost because...
They don't know he's here.
Oh,
he
man.
could get the kill. Oh, they light each other. He takes...
Oh, he flicks. He doesn't make
He
contact.
has to stay alive. 55 seconds. Misses. Now he only has 1 shot. He can't kill them
Oh,
both.
but Coffee Thief, what a beautiful setup, I will say, from
How
Unknown
did
One and
Rival-
Coffee Thief.
How did Rival turn that back around? They were down by
They
over
were
2,000 HP.
That was incredible teamwork, though, and very ballsy, I might add, because they were both within, I think their combined total HP was 72, maybe?
76, I think.
Yeah.
And great teamwork there. The decision to go chase was a little bit risky. Merle still should have come out on top of that, and he whiffed 2 shots into the dirt, and the third one he got beat to. So a little bit of a misplay there by him. However, overall, good positioning from
Right.
Rival. I like the play to focus them on south, and then Commander J did a very good job at lurking, coming in, and getting in there in a timely manner. And he managed just to get in enough time to sit there and really pump out some shots into Smiley Rage, who almost
You
single-handedly...
want to talk about damage? Smiley Rage came up huge for CD.
Yeah, he was doing work that game, but Commander J just came in there and ended his fun, essentially. He was just sitting there in a nice hold-down position. All he had to do was just keep backing forwards, backing down, and just kind of going on either end of the rock. And fired 19, hit 13 for 10 penetrations, 3,200 damage. He had to be very careful with the shots, constantly was just snapping them off because he had taken so much damage from Commander J.
Damn, Jay. Sorry.
And you're looking at
No,
exactly
you're right,
this.
though. You're absolutely right.
You know, the Executives doing decent that game, but overall, you got to question CD's choices there. That they were in a very good position. However, they ignored Commander J. They let him get in there. He came in. He did a pretty good job at understanding, all right, the guns are turned for me. Now I can get in here for free. And he found all the shots on the Smiley Rage. And he was the only one that could really do anything to him initially. And then once he was down to a two-shotter, then Smiley Rage had to be a lot more careful about poking out to get off those shots. And they were able to focus more on the tanks down below in front of them. And they were just able to pump out damage. But even then, they were still up on HP by a pretty sizable amount going into that. So you got to question how they handled that. Part of it has to do with the coordination of the clips and the bat chats. There was a little bit of a miscommunication there, I feel. They kind of didn't time their reloads perfectly. They all hit reload at the same time. And then Merle's decision to just stick with the 3, that's kind of like when you break contact, if you know you're going to be safe for a little while, drop the clip early, get the new shots in there, because, 3 should have been enough. It wasn't, and that could have come back to haunt him, provided he fired that last shot off. Trying to play those angles, he could have used the extra 2 shells there. In theory. However, he did go down. He did take some damage, so a little bit of nerves creeping in there, possibly the sweat getting on your hands, a little bit of a heart pounding there. But I digress. Going into it, Rival coming up with an E5, a 140, TVP, 3 bat chats, and an RU 251. Meanwhile, CD coming in with a 113, an IS-7, 2 140s, 2 bat chats, and Gabe once again in that 1390.
I think Gabe was actually in a 251 though, wasn't he? When he took out the SPG of Rival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was Gabe.
Right, but I think he was in a 251, not in the 1390.
Yes, he was in a. He switched on the attacking side. The 1390 is a bit more usable just for cap pressure. Has a bit better camo than the RU-251, and it's also a smaller profile. So we may see him head towards the north here pretty soon. The other thing to note is he is actually running binos as well on top of vents. So definitely set up to spot and scout. Or not scout, but spot and be passive. And CD are actually going to go ahead and clear the north, very similar to what Rival did last round. 1390's clearing the south, cleared the middle road, and he's just going to go ahead and head back towards the north. Like I said, I expect to see him be the tank that they use for cap pressure here pretty soon. Meanwhile, that Batchat is going to go ahead for CD, and he's going to head south. That's going to be Pompous. He's just going to chill out at F2, sit in the bush there, kind of exposed, but has pretty good vision down the south. There is a blind spot that you can push up along that bush if you hug the 2 line, so he's not necessarily in the perfect position, but should get the job done for now. And Rival running a fairly standard lineup. They have 1 tank boosted up at A2. They have the hold down E5 at B7, and the rest of the tanks have spread out further towards the south. Overall, it's a pretty hard defense for them to crack. So we'll have to see what they can do.
Well, let's go ahead and take a listen into Rival.
What's that stupid line?
Lower plus.
Hub, you want to keep probing up?
I'm working on it. I just missed this other jump.
Okay.
I'm gonna go dark, then I'll poke up again and try to take the light.
Okay. Yeah, we want to clear out this road. I think they put a 114 up here initially to counter this spot, so we want to be able to get in there and like punish that guy if we need to. From the south.
I'm making my nest.
Poked up,
I
no
think
lights
we
from
need-
over the tracker.
I think we need to put one more bat around here. 2
I'll
bat.
come back.
Yep.
Oh, you think they're going to come north? Okay.
Yeah.
South.
Oh,
South,
okay.
everything.
Oh, good lights.
I'm not gonna be able to make it out, so I'm just gonna hang out.
Okay. Well, let's look to make sure we're covering Pop then.
Should we down?
Try to-
B0 just for now.
Pop, stay in hidden.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go up middle road.
Hub, can you see
Maybe,
him?
but just in case.
Maybe,
I'm
yeah,
taking
we'll
B0.
see.
They have
Yeah.
nothing north right now. They're not running at all.
That's
Okay.
the one.
No, this
He's
is
trying to
going
blind
south
here.
bait.
That's
So something interesting to note there for me. Whoa, hold on a second. Pub Whisper almost going down.
You just heard another one ask, is it a south bait? And he tells Pub Whisperer to go ahead and move up. Pub Whisperer moves up and eats
And
3 shells.
Some shells, so he might be a little upset about that. But and that's just kind of to dial in on this game is although it didn't look like a lot was happening, there was still a lot of communication going on, and that's just to figure out exactly what the other team is trying to do.
Early in these games, a lot of it is an information game. It's trying to figure out where tanks are, where they're positioned, where do you have the overmatch, where don't you have an overmatch, where are you vulnerable, and what options do you have. And as a caller, it's very useful to have a lot of players sitting there talking to you, relaying useful information. Now, obviously, there can be a lot of useless chatter. Some teams are a lot more calm and organized about it. I really like Rivals comms.
Yeah, they seem to be really.
They're trying to work together, nothing unnecessary. It's all useful information if you listen to it. All right, this is spotted here.
I like it a lot.
I'm not getting spotted up here, so they're just trying to put together what information they can. Now, no one actually takes 900 damage, bounces another shot there.
I really like how placid their comms were. No one was panicking. Everyone. I mean, granted, nothing was happening, but all the information being passed was very useful.
Yeah, I don't know if you just saw that, but the bat chat just bounced 3 shots back.
Did you notice that I didn't even gloss over that because it's been happening so often this season that it's normal at this point.
Can we just start calling it a bounce chat? I mean, come on.
Maybe it's been happening that much. It might as well just be the best armor tank in the game at this point.
Ridiculous. Meanwhile, I7 is actually playing the hold down in the north, trying to square off with Flak. And the other thing to keep an eye on here is time is winding down. We're down to 4.5 minutes. And they're just now getting cap pressure on. Executus is actually boosted up in this bat chat. He's moving in position, trying to line up some blind fire, and he's actually aimed right towards Gabe, so he may find the blind fire here.
Is it Coffee Thief?
No, it's Executus up here.
Oh, I was going to say, if it's Coffee Thief, Gabe's pretty much dead. Remember what happened last time. Gabe is Gabe is going to take a shot and he's going to get off of Cap. As only 3 minutes and 55 seconds remain for Team CD to make their move as Gabe finds himself back onto that one cap. Shots coming onto E63. And he is going to go down. The question is how much damage can he do to X-Soldier before he goes, and only 598. Fixer's IS-7 getting tracked. He is going to use the repair kit and continue to back up. Pub Whisperer, though, is not going to be able to back up. He's going to get eliminated as X-Soldier now lines up for shots in that 113 onto Commander J's Bad Chat. And the shot is now gone.
Once again, Rival struggling on defense. Map that's historically been pretty defensively sided. They tried to push tanks out in the south. They got caught out there a little bit.
3 out of 5 here, too, as well on defense.
Yeah, and so they just struggling right now. And down goes Unknown One. Commander J is about to follow. He is going to make it into that back corner. He's going to get up high right there where he has a good position to overlook. He might be able to actually pick off X-Soldiers yards away.
The problem is 10 seconds now, though, for Rival. They need to get resets. They need to make something happen as there's only 5 seconds now. Team CD is looking to run away with this one.
The blind shot's coming in, nothing connecting.
And
that's
Gabe,
be
in fact, is going to take out Coffee Thief. And Team CD is going to tie it up 2-2.
So, pretty good stuff out of CD there. I like what they did there. They worked it really hard in the north early, but then they moved most of their stuff back into the south, and they left just that IS-7 and the 140 and the 1390 up in the north. Everything else was in the south. The 113 was in the middle of the road where you could really flex to either side. And they were just working that middle road. It really opened up a lot of the map for them. And then no matter which direction Rival would decide to come from, they could just be worked down. The damage would come out on them. And just overall, it was a great little attack by CD. I like the idea there.
Regardless of that, though, I really got to say I am impressed with Rival's comms.
Oh, absolutely. We've heard a lot of different comms over the last couple days. We've heard some rather interesting comms, which I don't think they're entertaining to listen to for sure. That also kind of indicates why some of those teams are necessarily struggling.
It's not horrendous.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the best situation. Now you can argue that Rival aren't performing much better, so maybe not.
To be fair, maybe comms is something they needed to clean up.
Yeah, and looking at it, just look at all the damage here for Rival. Just not a whole lot they were able to get out that game. They just constantly were pushing around into
low.
Yeah, they're just pushing around into a lot of set positions. CD did a good job rotating south, and they just made sure to control the south. And once again, I've talked about this. to cap the north cap, you need to control the south. Or to get a reset, you need to control the south. The only other option is to play hard through the north. If you play anything other than a hard north, and I'm talking up, about, and around the train tracks and the red line, if you're not doing that with the majority of your tanks, you need to have some presence in the south. Now, if you want to push as far as Rival did, not necessarily. They pushed into a lot of set guns from CD, which they didn't know were there, obviously. We heard that whole conversation. However, you need to have enough control in the south that you can use that little hold down at C6, C7 there along the ridge on this side of the field there. We see a lot of tanks go there. If you don't have anything in the south, a tank in that spot cannot stay alive. They're just going to get worked down. And so it makes it really hard to get resets on that cap. You're solely reliant on blind fire. And a good tank on cap, a good scout player, or another medium that's sitting on cap, they're going to do a good job at repositioning constantly, and they're going to be very tricky to find. And that 1390, to begin with, is just a very small tank. So trying to blind fire, one little tank on pretty much anywhere on that cap circle is rather difficult. Now, you can safely take away about half the cap because the front half can be spotted by the D5, but it's that whole back half of the cap that they're going to have trouble really lighting. And so you can kind of assume it's most likely going to be back there, but it could be anywhere around that back circle. And so sitting there, especially with something like an E5 and just trying to blind fire, in the time it takes to cap, you're only going to fire, you have, I think it's a 9-second reload or so, 8.5. You're going to fire in 2 minutes, it's like 20 shots essentially you'll get out. Or it's a lot less than that. It's like 12 shots you'll get out. It's kind of hard to rely just on the one tank. And Executus in that bat chat didn't come up either.
I'm going to have to agree to disagree to agree with you. That was a lot of information you just threw my way, James.
Fair enough.
Well, let's get to the third map of Rival and Team CD.
Runeberg, a mixed-type map. The defending team starts the battle on the green, and the attacking team starts at the centre square of the town. Bases are located quite far from each other. Both bases are better controlled from the village when playing a heavy setup. It's better to attack the first base through the top direction with the help of several well-armoured heavy tanks. For the attack on the second base, it's better to use a more mobile setup and either play through the centre or split forces. In general, the map is not easy to play on. Teams often use blind shots and risky shifting of the forces from one flank to another.
So, going over the lineups here, Rival coming in with 2 113s, an IS-7, 2 15B, 2 TVPs, and a 1390. Meanwhile, Siebel this week coming in with 2 Batchets, 3 113s, and 2 T10s. And they are all going to head south right out of the gates for CD. Rival running a pretty standard split defense here, pushing that 1390 all the way into A3 to stop any sort of push through the north. And just having the 113s up there ready to receive a push. And something rather interesting here is Pub Whisperer's actually gotten very aggressive. And is sitting here in the bush. He's going to have a clean line of sight all the way over towards B1 there, so they'll know if a push is coming pretty early. And all he has to do to get safe...
There is a push coming.
Yeah, but it's just not going to be on that end. And they're just going to drive straight onto cap.
Exactly. It's going to be the complete opposite of where they had anticipated. As now Team CD should be able to push relatively well into this Delta Village and do some damage.
I do like this play out of Rival or out of CD. They could turn this into a pretty bad situation very soon for Rival. Now CD are losing a lot of HP right now. These TVPs sitting in a very good spot to pump out a lot of damage. However, now that those TVPs are out of clip, these Batchets are going to push in, and they are going to be able to pretty much single-handedly take out the IS-7 in the south, and this could flip-flop around in favor of CD very quickly.
Unknown One is currently dealing with Ex-Soldier and Rename. Gabe is behind him, putting a lot of pressure on that 215B. Flak has fallen, and Unknown One is going to follow suit. Coffee Thief getting the trade, though, with Muriel Scarata at the end of his weapon, but wait a second, Ex-Soldier now is not going to be taken out actually at all by Publis, where he was out of his clip. Well, now Ex-Soldier sitting here in this 113 with absolutely 0 life left, still getting shots. Finally, E63 is going to clean him up.
The key moment in this game is going to be this next clip out of both of these Batchats. They need to get in here and make these clips be very effective before they go down, or this game is going to be over.
A63 is going to go down to Fixer Reloaded here in just a moment. Let's go ahead and listen in quickly here for Team CD.
You don't push the 0 line, you go below and push it. It's okay. It's okay.
No, I didn't say push the 0 line. I just said sit at the 0 line.
It's Ruinberg attack. It's okay.
We could have won that.
We needed to be more aggressive initially.
It's Ruinberg attack.
And part of the reason why they're saying that is they have a 0% win rate on Ruinberg attack, and Rival have only actually won once on attack on Ruinberg.
Okay.
So definitely one of the maps that's still pretty defensively sided these days.
Sure, but I mean, we've seen teams, and not just the top, we've seen multiple teams win on this map before on attack. So I don't really like that. I mean, I completely understand that Ruinberg is very defensively sided. I get that. I'm not trying to say that he's wrong in any sense of the fashion. I'm just trying to say I don't like that almost giving up of, hey, it's Ruinberg attack, we'll get him on defense. Like, why not strive to be one of the few teams that can consistently beat someone on attack? I know it's difficult.
We've seen teams straight up have no idea how to attack on this map before. Not to take a shot at get flanked or anything, but they had some matches on Ruinberg
where they just had no idea how to approach it. Right.
It is, if teams are even if you say they are just dead even on skill, identical teams even say it's the same team playing themselves, I'm going to give that to the defense 99% of the time on that map.
Sure.
Even if they have some sort of god tier attacking strat to break it, that map is just so defensively sided. It's very hard to do. It takes. What it really comes down to is, does the defense make mistakes? When the defense start making mistakes, that's when those attacking wins come in.
So let me ask you, what is it exactly about this map that makes it just so defensively sided?
Positioning of the cap circles is one of them.
Okay.
And then the lanes that you can attack from. If you go into the south, your only option is that south cap. And at that point, once you're committed down there, all the guns can very quickly get around you. They can go through the town, and they can leave you boxed to the south. If you want to try to take the north cap, you're stuck doing the north cap. You can maybe play something in the middle road, but it's going to be so disjointed, it's very easy for the other team to just find an overmatch on one of those two groups.
There's got to be something out there that can... I just don't like that almost throwing away type attitude. And that's not to say, again, they were throwing...
They were very close to a clever
and they were doing
there.
well, to be completely honest, and that's what I'm saying. I want to see a team really come out and attack this map, and really attack this map and make it their own. That's all I'm saying.
The breakdown in that attack came at the moment when those bat chats pushed. I like the overall idea. Basically what it is all right, we know they're probably going to put that I-7 down there, so we're going to get some cap pressure going and drive into the village. The thing is they pushed in with all those heavy tanks just a little bit too soon before those bat chats were ready to go get that I-7. They almost respected that I-7 too much, and they just pushed into all the guns. If they had waited for the bat chats to draw a little bit of fire once they were down there killing that IS-7, 2 bat chats, even if one of them goes down pretty quickly, should still be enough to kill an IS-7.
At the very least.
And even if they don't, they're going to draw so much fire from the town that all those heavy tanks are going to be able to push in at that point without having to take that initial damage that I've been talking about, where pushing into a defensive position is normally a bad thing.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that because all the shots have been fired at those bat chats. So at that point, you can push in and not take that damage. The problem is they pushed into 2 TVPs that were just sitting there in those buildings, and they pushed in and just gave up the HP for essentially nothing. So if they had gotten those bat shots in there a little bit sooner, they had made them draw a little bit fire. And what you really want to go for in that is identical timing. Have them be maybe a split second ahead of time. Instead, all the heavy tanks took the blunt of the damage, and it was never going to be the bat chats that were going to carry that game. It was always going to be those heavies. The goal of the bat chats should have purely just been to distract and destroy that I-7 if they can. I would have said killing that I-7 is secondary to drawing fire from the village, in my opinion.
Okay.
So we'll have to see what CD can do different on defense.
I really want to see Rival win this on attack, on offense. I really do.
We'll have to see.
I know it's going to be ridiculously difficult, but...
Rival have only won 1 of 4 on defense or on attack this match.
Make it 2 of 5. Here we go, James. I believe.
And right out of the gate, Rival coming in with 4 113s, 2 50Bs, and a T54 lightweight. Siebel the Tweet coming in with 4 113s of their own, and 2 bat chats, and a RU251. So two very similar lineups. Just opting for bat chats over 50Bs and an RU over a T54 lightweight.
Come on, Rival. I mean, what? There's no bias.
And a very strong, aggressive play out of Rival right out of the gates. We'll have to see how much support Merles gets. None of these tanks are lit, and they're not being punished on the cross right now.
Oh my goodness. This could be huge for Rival.
They do track E63.
Shots on the game. 9:33. One more, and he is going to go down if they can find that shot. Coffee Thief is sneaking up. Well, not so much sneaking anymore. Onto Maril. And those two 113s should duel it out. But the problem is Coffee Thief has much more support coming up in E63 and a known one as well. They have established a big presence, though, towards the east now on that A line, so this cap should actually be somewhat of a threat.
Yeah, the problem is that CD have already gotten 2 tanks in behind, so they will have free resets on those tanks. Batchat over at E1 should find the shots here pretty soon.
Maril is 1 shot away from going down. He's not going to go down quite yet. He's still fighting, still putting damage onto the team of Rival and doing his job.
And this is why I said is very attacking right now. Notice how, or why this map is so hard on the attacking side. They've had to pull tanks away to deal with these Batchats, and these Batchats are just running, and they've left this overmatch for these 113s. It's a 4-on-3, and CD could turn this around very quickly.
They could indeed. Unknown One is fighting Ex-Soldier. Coffee Thief and E63 are also there. They have to worry about Fixer Reloaded as well as Rename. And Maril, I might add, is still alive in the back. Team CD doing an excellent job of keeping him alive and keeping him in the fight, as any gun that is still in the fight is a huge threat. Executus going to find Gabe in the 251. That threat is no longer there, although it's debatable on how much of a threat that tank really is. The tier 8 light, as far as a brawler, that's not what it's there for.
All these 113s in this village are all one-shotters right now.
These teams have worked each other down to the bare minimum. Maril is still
Pub
alive.
Whisper's going to push in.
Uh-oh.
But the Batchats are in the south. They may be able to pick off Pub.
No, Pub is going to get in. Smiley Rage and Pompous. The Batchats that are left. Wait, E63 finding Maril. This is looking good for Rival. As I say that, Coffee Thief goes down. Still Commander J, Pub Whisper, E63 Flag, and Unknown One, though, left for Team Rival. CD only has Ex-Soldier and Pompous, who are both 1 shot away from being taken out of the fight. And then Smiley Rage, who still is sporting somewhat of healthy HP. It's going to be 1,400. Flag looks like he's almost about had enough of Ex-Soldier staying alive, but the corpse of his teammate is still protecting him.
They're trying so hard to get Ex-Soldier. They're even resorting to HE straight to the turret right now.
The problem is they can't necessarily just go around either, because they have to worry about Smiley Rage and that Batchat just getting free shots.
Well, they don't know where he is.
Actually, no, he's not even there anymore. He's coming in on the flank.
This could be huge for Smiley Rage. He's going to...
Ex-Soldier does fall. Smiley Rage, 1 more shot onto Commander J to take him out. He will take him out. And depending on how he plays this, I mean, it's not impossible. It will be difficult. Flak in that 113 right in front of the 63, saving him from any sort of danger. Although Smiley Rage does find him at this point, it's going to be too late, and Rival are going to go up 4-2 against Team CD, and they win on attacking.
It's kind of funny that I go on about how hard attacking is on Runeberg, and that very round Rival go and do that.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
Certain element of irony there.
Rival are winners, you know what I'm saying? They don't just give up like you do.
Ouch. Ouch.
I feel like that. I want to apologize. I feel like I went too far
right
there.
Okay.
anyways, moving forward, I think Rival played very well. Now, they were caught in an awkward situation with Ex-Soldier hiding himself between two corpses of his teammates. Eventually, he did go down, but the reason we saw them not really push was because it was Pompous and Smiley holding the angle of the Delta Village onto the A line, which was stopping them. But once they took out Magnus, we finally saw them push around.
My biggest problem with this whole round comes from how CD responded there. Overall, they did a pretty good job putting themselves in the right position. They used those batch shots to get in behind once they realized that they were out of shots and the 50Bs were coming after them. They drove away, but they also knew that those 50Bs were coming after them. And they very quickly knew that they had an overmatch in that A6 village. They had more 113s there, be it Merle's was a one-shotter, but they had the HP pretty much at that point in their favor on those 113s. And if they had just pushed into that village and just gotten those buildings between them and just taken the head-to-head brawl instead of trying to play the corner games, they could have killed all of those 113s in there, and it would have just been down to the 50Bs, and their Batchats still would have been alive in the south because they left. And instead what happened was they hesitated. They played corner games. When the 50Bs realized that they weren't going to catch those Batchats, the 50Bs just turned around, and they had clean shots towards that A6 village on the outside where a lot of the tanks from CD were doing, which is what we saw was CD then had to back off because they just gave up that window that they had. They had a small opening to push in there and really capitalize.
The 113s got caught.
And they just got caught out, and they just a little bit of hesitation there. There's a lot to be said about deciding to play corner games or push all in. There's always a good bit of debate over that. More often than not, especially when you have a sizable HP lead, you're better off just massing up and just pushing in, getting in there and using the advantage of the guns and the HP that you have and just making sure that goes down in your favor. Even if you're going to have low HP for the rest of the game, as long as there's other tanks alive and you take out those guns that you were trying to kill, it's going to come out in favor of your team.
Yeah.
And instead, they just didn't get those 113s down. The 50Bs were able to get back in there. They got into the fight. And just overall, the 113s for CD just weren't really able to really push in there and just pump out enough damage and get those guns down. They just left them alive for too long. And then when Flat came in with all his HP left still, provided he wasn't even near them to begin with.
True.
That was the one thing that just didn't work out for him. If they had just chosen to group up and just push in, they could have ended that round then and there.
Yeah, well, they didn't. And it was Rival taking the dub on offense.
So it is going to be 4-2 in favor of Rival. And the next map is going to be Ghost Town.
From what I remember of Ghost Town and Rival, it's been kind of shaky.
Yeah, they've really kind of struggled on this. You can see what they're going for, but the timings have always been off. They normally get one. They normally split up too far.
Yeah, the split is usually what ends up actually killing them because it's just ever so slightly mistimed.
And that one group gets overmatched by a majority of the tanks, and they end up throwing their way around.
Yeah. Well, let's see if Rival has cleaned it up as we head into the next map.
Ghost Town. The first absolutely symmetrical map, made especially for 7 versus 7 games. The teams start the battle on opposite sides. There are numerous ways to attack here. One of the bases is located in the central square, the other one at the top of the city. The hardest battles are usually fought for the top base, and this calls for the use of heavy tanks. Sometimes the teams choose fast tanks for spotting and base capturing.
And we are on to
Here
battle.
We go into battle number 7. It's gonna be a good one.
Rival coming up with 2 215Bs, 3 50Bs, a Batchat, and an RU 251. Meanwhile, Siebel the Tweet coming in with 3 215Bs, 2 50Bs, a Batchat, and a RU 251. So the only thing separating these two teams is the choice to go with an extra 215B over 50B.
Correct.
A little bit more burst and flexibility over the consistent fire gun of that 215B, and Pub Whisper just getting beaten up at every little angle.
Not a lot of HP left on Pub Whisper. And he still has to deal with being the scout. And it's tough because then you find yourself in a situation in a tier 8 light where you either decide, do I risk it? Or do I just kind of play back and try to get lights from a much safer distance, although I won't be as effective?
Yeah, well, exactly, and it's just a very hard situation. You have to really be careful with your HP in the tier 8 light, and it's always kind of how to say this. you always want your tier 8 to be the tank that does take damage. If any of the tanks are going to be taking damage,
well, sure.
And you need the intel, so you always want them to be a little bit more risky than your other tanks. Now, that being said, to
you
be
don't want to just
effective,
throw it away, though.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to throw it away, and you want to be effective and stay alive for a while. So trying to keep your HP is also very important. So it's kind of a very fine point that you have to work on as far as being effective in the long term, but also making sure that your team has proper intel, because if you worry too much about keeping your HP and you're not bringing in enough lights and enough intel for your team, you're no good.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very hard position to play, and a lot of people underestimate it. A lot of people assume, all right, as long as he's over there and I know it's there, if he dies, whatever, if I get the intel out of it. To play it well, consistently, takes a lot of practice.
I think one of the hardest roles to play in this game as far as competitively is that tier 8 light role.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. It's that, and it's tier 10 mediums such as Executus when you're the sole medium on a map like Himmelsdorf or Ghost Town, where you have to play off on the sides, understanding the timings,
though,
the routes.
I gotta say, he's such a flexible player. Again, we've seen him in tank destroyers. We've seen him in, I believe, some tier. I think we've seen him in some tier 10 heavies, and
we see him in a lot. He switches around.
He switches around, and he's consistent in pretty much every tank.
Yep, he's always been a very solid team player. Does whatever is best for the team. So whichever position they feel they need someone to step into, he's always been that person, the go-to for whatever, and he's always done a pretty good job at it. Rival on attack. They are using that bat chat on the cap right now. The RE251 is just watching the zero line. And the biggest problem that they have right now, as Gabe actually does find the reset onto Executus.
Yep. Nice shot coming over, and that wasn't blind, was it? Did he actually spot it?
No, they were all spotted.
Okay.
So this bat chat lurking in the south, if he finds Pub Whisperer, this could be bad because he's essentially a one-shotter at this point. Right now, just a lot of posturing out of both teams. Rival were hoping to make some sort of play through that corridor, and once they realized that all the tanks had backed off and it was just a single 215B, they decided that wasn't a good idea, and they've just kind of gone a little more passive. They're trying to work X-Soldier, but they're repositioning again, trying to open things back up, not really looking to make that push right now. But they don't really have anyone to make any cap pressure happen because Executus has rotated out the zero line and is going to go chase the batch out of Smiley Rage, because they Pub Whisper did spot him earlier, so he's trying to make sure that Smiley Rage still isn't lurking in the south. And while Pub Whisper is a one-shotter, it's 2 guns against 1, so they could win that as long as Pub Whisper plays it right and doesn't take the bulk of the damage. But Executus also can't take a full clip from a bat shot, so it's going to be a very tricky engagement here.
Smiley Rage is also lit. He is visible to the members of Rival. And he's going to fire off a nice shot onto Executus. 2 of them, in fact. Smiley Rage coming up big for CD as they put Rival further behind with the HP advantage.
Smiley Rage can win this 2v1 with 1 clip. He should have 3 shots left. All Pub Whisper needs is 1, and 2 are all remain for Executus. Meanwhile, Rival do make the push.
And the push is going to be coming, like you said, from Team Rival. They are going to try to find X-Soldier. They are set up to take him down, but how much is that commitment going to cost them?
Now, a little RE251 and Gabe up on top is just going to sit here and pepper these tanks. Meanwhile, X-Soldier does turn into the tank that they are going to focus down.
And Mariel is going to take out Unknown One. I mean, X-Soldier, we knew he was going to fall, but the cost was huge for Rival just to take out X-Soldier.
Smiley Rage is going to push in and finally pick up the kill on Executus, and now he should have shots to come help out the rest of his team clean up these last 5 tanks alive.
Rename is going to take out Flak here, and then Pop is coming around the corner to clean up Commander J. This one is going to be looking like it's going to Team CD, and relatively cleanly, I might add. Only 2 tanks remain. Mariel is still on full HP in the 50B. Pompous pretty much is only taking about 1 shot, and there it is. Rename gonna find Pub Whisper, clean him up, and well done to Team CD.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing
4-3
that I just looked down at my notes for is defense for Rival is only a 40% win rate
on this map.
Interesting. So we could be going into overtime here if they aren't careful.
We very well may.
So overall, once again, just a bit of a, I don't want to call it a disjointed push out of Rival, but they kind of took the long way around to get X-Soldier down, and Gabe was up in the north, and so the little RU-251 of Gabe put up, I don't want to call it insane, but rather impressive damage this game for a Tier 8 Light on Ghost Town.
Not only that, but he was the top damage dealer for his team.
Of anyone. 2,500.
Of anyone, right, in a Tier 8 Light tank.
And all he had to do was sit up on a cliff and just sit there and just click his left mouse button a bunch of times. Right. I mean, it was really that easy. He's just sitting there. He has the rear of all the tanks, the 50Bs and the 215s staring at him. They're focused on trying to kill X-Soldier. And so the whole time they pushed along that top road and then down into the village. So he was just getting free shots off the whole time. And when you can fire every 5 seconds, you're going to rack up damage no matter how much alpha your gun does.
Right. And again, obviously not the most alpha on that gun, but still he was very, very effective in that position. Now, CD did call a timeout. And I wonder what they could be cooking up, because they are going to be on offense now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of have to favor them going into this. Rival just lost a round. Now, Rival did look pretty impressive on Ruinberg. Now, you could argue that their win there on the attacking side was more of a misplay by CD. At least I feel it was.
Okay. I could agree with you there.
I definitely think on that round there were some things in particular that CD could have done better, been a little more decisive on, and they could have turned that match around pretty easily. However, looking at this, CD just held their angles. They understood the crossfires. They didn't give Rival that same overmatch that people have been doing against them. Is Rival give them some sort of split, and then they end up just losing to some sort of big ball that just pushes into them. And what CD did there was they set up in one position. They looked around. They said, all right, well, they're going to be playing out of the east, so we're going to shift over to the west. We're going to back our tanks away. We're just going to keep eyes on these approaches, and when they make those pushes, we'll see it coming from a mile away, and there's not going to be anything there for them to dump onto and to get down easily enough.
No overmatch, correct.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was very good positioning overall out of CD that really made that round work. There wasn't any sort of real impressive play out of anyone. It was just overall good positioning. They flexed around. They made sure they kept some of their guns together, and they made it every time that Rival wanted to push. They had to push down some sort of long alleyway where they were going to take a lot of damage, and that's ultimately what lost Rival that round.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, either way, CD also played that very well, and great stuff coming out of Smiley Rage, really working the bat chat of Executus, I believe, and it was also Coffee Thief. Pub Whisper, who was in the Tier 8 Light. As he was rotating, he was still finding those shots onto Executus and just hitting the ones that mattered.
Yeah, well, he was making all his shots be effective, which is something that's so important to do in a bat chat. He had to play that perfectly, because if he missed one shot, one of those two tanks would have killed him. Right. And so the fact that he was able to constantly make his shots count, and they were counting, and they knew that they didn't have the HP to take him, it just, even though he didn't end up killing them, they knew that they couldn't push on him. That made them slow down, and it gave the rest of his team time to really work. Well, 2 guns were out of the fight.
Yep. Well, are we going to go into overtime, or is Rival going to pick up their 3rd win in a row as we head to Rival being on defense now?
Rival coming in there with 2 50Bs, 2 215Bs, an IS-7, a bat chat, and a RU-251. Meanwhile, CD at 113, 3 T-57s, a 50B, and 2 T-57.
So going with the Tier 9 lineup here, okay.
So this is the second time we've seen the double Tier 9 lineup out of CD tonight. They did it on their Rodenberg attack, which didn't work out from then. However, this is definitely a bit of a different setup. My guess is it's going to be a hard north play with those 57s sitting at this exact position the RU is coming through right now, and he needs to be careful he doesn't get caught out. Smiley Rage may be in a position to punish that little RU-251 here. And while that was very risky out of Pub Whisper, he gave them the intel. They know that there are 3 tanks coming to this cap, and so they have the time they need to rotate around and adjust and get into these proper positions. However, the thing is with all these 57s here, if Rival want to push into the normal gaps to get those resets, they're going to have to eat a lot of damage.
It's that risk versus reward here that they have to think about.
And the thing about this play for CD is this is really a one-trick pony play. This is either going to work instantly or it's not going to at all. These 57s need to go hero mode right now. They need to hold this.
Commander J, E63, and Coffee Thief all swarming those 257s, and just like that, Muriel is going to fall. Rename could be next. E63 is also taking damage. He's going to go down. A Smiley Rage in the 50B. Resets have come on to the cap of CD. Pressure will not be as heavy, but still 33 seconds, and the HP pool is pretty much even, only about 1,400 total. Oh, now, never mind. Now it's getting quite heavy in favor of Team Rival. Executive sitting right in front of Pompous in the T57 from his bat shot, as well as Flack in that I7, and Coffee Thief taking out Pompous in just a moment here. Rename may fall next.
And this is going to overtime. The tanks for CD took too long to get off the cap. Now that they're coming around the long way, Rival can just push forward and get the overmatch on these reloading autoloaders.
Did you say this is going to overtime? Because from the looks of it,
this is going to be Rival. This is going to be Rival winning.
This is going to be, yeah. It's going to be a regulation win. It's not quite over yet, but Rival, huge advantage. Smiley Rage is going to take out Coffee Thief, but the trade for Commander J is going to be right behind him. This is the Rival I was curious to see whether or not they were going to show up, and sure enough, a few missteps here or there. Well played to them.
Yep, it's just a matter of time of cleaning up these last 3 heavy tanks. My biggest complaint this round has to definitely be on CD. Once they had that first reset, the way this strat was set up, they should have just assumed that they weren't going to be able to cap at that point, and those heavy tanks needed to leave that cap and go find something to kill. Instead, they sat on cap for about another 20 seconds after the first reset, and they really weren't able to be effective. At that point, them leaving the cap was red, and so when they tried to push off into that 215B, they had already repositioned. They went over to the autoloaders. The autoloaders already fired, and so they had that free overmatch.
It was too little too late. Honestly, I agree with you. I don't think those tanks should have sat on cap. Once the reset came off, they should have just absolutely bolted off of it and assisted the rest of the tanks, including those T57s.
Yeah, because those 57s, like I said, they needed to hold that, and they needed. If they didn't hold
they
that,
needed a hero play, as you said.
Yeah, they had to come up big there. They needed to get a lot of kills just out of those 57s. The second that those got through the first clip and they weren't really able to finish off anything, and they were losing tanks, that's when you have to give up on that cap. You can't, even if it's low, 100%. You have to make some sort of play. And looking at the damage this game, both the T10s just really weren't able to get into the fight. Fixer Reloaded fired 8, but a lot of those were at distance on the side scraping IS-7 from Rival, and just only able to do 700. The other was only able to do 700 himself, fired 5, only penned 2. And then the last one was X-Soldier, who was actually able to be rather effective overall, but the problem is those T10s were just a little bit too slow. That 113 was just fast enough to kind of stay on those tanks.
I have to interject for a moment, because I've noticed a trend almost in this season of the Gold League, in both the first round robin and the second. Anytime I see, or I've noticed teams going for the double T10 Tier 9 lineup, they usually lose.
I would have to check onto that to see.
I want you to check that, but if my memory serves me correctly, I want to say that loses more often than just having 6 Tier 10s.
Yeah, honestly, I'll have to go and check on that. I'm sure I could dig that up. It would take a little bit, but...
Anyone watching, by the way, if you can, or you do know those stats, please let us know on Twitter.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone will have that, because that's a lot of information that they'll have to have gathered. More often than not, I feel that the Tier 8 lineup is normally more effective just overall. The only reason that I really see to bring the Tier 9s recently has to do with that Tier 9 bat chat. Tier 9 bat chat is just so powerful.
Right, and we see that a lot.
We certainly see that one a lot. Yeah. Bringing the double Tier 9 heavies has never really been a popular option. There have been some plays that definitely have made it work. But overall, I'm just not a huge fan of it. And the problem with the way this whole strat was set up was it was set up to brawl after the cap. But the problem is that they didn't try to go for that brawl soon enough, in my opinion.
Right. Well, we are going to be joined by none other than Executus. Congratulations on your win, sir. I got to say, you have easily been the most consistent player on your team. You play many different roles, and that's actually the question I have for you more personally. How were you kind of put into the role of being the most flexible one? As far as, we've seen you in Tier 8s, or excuse me, in Tier 10 mediums. We've seen you in Tier 10 tank destroyers, heavies. What put you in that role?
I don't think I've played a heavy yet, but As long as I don't have Artie and it's not mine, usually I'm fine. I just play a lot of the game normally. I'm used to just playing. I have all the tier 10s. I play them as much as I can, so I'm just used to playing all the different tanks. So usually if it's got tracks and a gun, I can usually figure it out.
Even still, though, you are very consistent. So I wanted to commend you on that. And I guess I was right. I don't think we'd seen him in a heavy. I thought we did, but we haven't. So it's only been the tank destroyers or
50B, I guess, is a heavy.
Yeah,
okay.
well, yeah,
I guess
technically,
that's
yeah.
a heavy.
But yeah, anyways, very consistent. That was my question.
Yeah, so overall, the attack, we were sitting here and we were saying that attacking on Roenberg is something very hard to do, and then you turned around and showed us wrong. What do you attribute that to? Because I felt I was more CD misplaying that. How did you see that round?
That round was all unknown, making a decision at the start based off the lineup he saw. That wasn't the original strategy we had even thought about going to do. We were originally going to go south, but he looked at the lineup and was like, hey, do you think we could just shove all of our tanks into the north and win that? And that's what we ended up going with, and it worked out.
All right.
And that's pretty much all the questions we had. I also want to tell you that I think overall your comms was a pleasant surprise. And despite what we've heard, is that how comms are? So I actually do have a question. Is that normally how rival comms are? Because it was very calm. Everyone was passing on information. There was no useless chatter. So that's my question.
Sometimes it gets a little amped up depending on the situation, but most of the time it's normally pretty calm. Not too much cross chatter and useless information if we can help it.
Yeah, well, it was good. Again, congratulations, executives, you guys. This is a nice rival. I like seeing this rival. You can hear the